כביש מספר 6 לדרום עמוס מבאקה ועד...
מה זה?
המשבר בקואליציה?
חיתות, אירובי, פילאטי.
יש רעיון.
כן, זה בלילה, הקרש הזה.
אבל למה? זה מזרחי!
לא מעניין, תפתח את הדלת.
לא רוצה!
There, and welcome into the SPL waiting room. Apologies for the bit of abrupt start, but we needed to get right into the action because, chat, what I wanted to talk to you about was the fact that we only have 2 weeks left of the SPL, and that includes this week. It's pretty much at the very end of the season. 2020 has been so weird that I feel like it's kind of snuck up on all of us. I mean, we all knew this phase was going to be long. I mean, it's been a grueling phase for everybody. Production and casters included, but mostly, of course, for these teams playing each other 3 times each all the way since the middle of the year. It's crunch time now, though, for these teams. A lot of teams are on the up and up. I think we've seen a lot more from PK as of late. Of course, that team is going to be on everybody's radar as they are 4 out of 5 of the defending world champions. We've got to see what's going to happen in the top seed. We're going to talk about that upcoming matchup in just a little bit. Where is Sanguine going to be in all of this is another question mark that I think a lot of people and teams are going to have, because with PK's absolutely atmospheric run that they've been on as of late, people are forgetting that Sanguine is right there with them when it comes to the standings. And where does that leave Radiance in all of this? How about Renegades, E United, Obey, 3 teams that have all shown the potential to be potential good teams, but haven't done it consistently basically all year. All of that talk about the bottom 3 in particular of, Renegades, E United, and Obey, they'll put it together. You know, they're just working out how they want to play, how they want to draft. They'll be able to put it together. Clock's ticking. You got to get it together right now. I do not think it's reasonable to expect any team, especially the teams that haven't proven that they can do it consistently, to all of a sudden do it consistently when it matters the most. They have the least amount of pressure on them right now. I don't think that it's fair to expect that these teams will all of a sudden start doing it whenever the pressure is really on. So these next 2 weeks, critical for E United, Renegades, and Obey, but also the other 5 teams in the SPL. That's what makes it so exciting. In case you didn't see what happened last week during Week 12, of course, got to start off the show with our recap as written by Finch and Dave and as told by Dave and Finch.
Well, it's time for another episode of the SPL Weekly Recap out there, SMITE fans, with Finch and Dave. You know how this works. We write these scripts for each other, then read them for the very first time here as part of this show. That way you get to see all the flubs and mistakes happening live and in person. So I'll be starting us off. While Week 12 was a very lengthy one as far as total games go, Friday was the exception to that trend. The weekend started with Radiance tanking on Sanguine. Radiance just recently broke a 5-set loss streak, brutal, with a win over E United. So taking on Sanguine was a chance to really get things back on track. Sanguine was up to the task, though, however, and grabbed a 2-0 set win.
That's right. The final set on Friday saw the top of the league face off against the bottom, SSG versus Obey. The match didn't play out quite like a mismatch, though. Obey gave SSG a run for their money with a new composition that caught them a bit off guard. In the end, however, it's still a 2-0 favoring SSG as Obey can't quite close out their games.
Saturday starts with a barn burner between Radiance and PK, 2 teams who seem closely matched, but PK are coming off a small break from games, a break that came during the peak of one of the hottest streaks in the league for PK. Ultimately, Radiance shrug off their early weekend woes and defeat PK in 3 games.
PK versus Ghost was the second match of the day, and PK just came off their loss that Finch covered over to Radiance. If that loss affected them, though, PK didn't show it. The rise through the ranks continues as they managed to win 2 very close games over Ghost and maintain their top 4 in the standings. Thanks, Dave. It's time to break down Space Station versus the Renegades, and for that, it's me, Dave. Anyway, the SSG, the first-seeded team in the league, take on the Renegades, who are about as up and down as a team can be. This set is kind of close, at least game 1 is, but if you ask Rapper, it's more about the boys trolling a bit than anything else. Overall, once SSG recover from game 1, they go on to finish off the set quickly, finding the nice 2-0 win.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for finally bringing it back to me. I'm still tired after Sunday, but let's just be honest. Sunday had 2 separate 3-hour sets, the first of which was Obey versus Radiance. And if we have learned anything recently, and that is unlikely for Dave, it's that Obey are going to be competitive in every set that they play. Every team in the SPL will be, for that matter. A few lengthy games spell a close set, but one that Radiance would win 2-1.
The second 3-hour set of the day on Sunday may have fried our brain cells, but that didn't mean the games weren't good. SSG and E United battled all the way to 3 games, but with both teams looking dominant at certain points. But it's Sanguine who managed to edge out E United for the 2-1 victory. And what a week, huh? That's gonna do it for us in Week 12 after a 6-hour Sunday. That's 2 sets that take 6 hours on Sunday. That's Week 12 here in the SPL. Here's to hoping Week 13 is just as fun.
Thank you very much, of course, to Dave and Finch, and we got to keep at least one of those boys rolling here on the waiting room. So for that, we've got Dave, but Miff this time around. Everyone hold your applause. I know you were expecting Finch and said you got Mifflin. I know you're all very excited about it. We've got a show to do, though, so try and keep it down over there. Look, fellas, You're just talking about how long Sunday was. It was not an isolated incident. A lot of teams have been going long in a lot of these games. It's starting to become a trend. What have you noticed, Mifflin, that has kind of led to this? Is Miff muted for me, or Dave?
No,
You got him?
he hasn't noticed anything. Aggro is what I'm picking up here. I think,
Right, he has no idea.
Yeah,
right,
not a
excuse me.
single thing he's noticed. I do think.
Go ahead, Dave.
Right, he's yell it from the mountaintops. I almost wonder,
am I in?
Aggro. There you go, Mifflin.
Hey,
All right,
Mifflin, you lost your turn, though.
Just
Dave, never interrupt Dave again. Literally ever. Dave, please take it away.
Now, I do wonder, and this is more of a curiosity thing than maybe something I've fully noticed. I wonder if some of these lengthier games are brought about because of some of the more Sustainy-esque compositions we're starting to see built. Ra, I think, comes to my mind more specifically, the ability to sit back, sustain up your team, snipe from range. I mean, that is so difficult to dive and Phoenix Siege against, so I almost wonder if the rise specifically of Ra in the mid lane, the continued presence of Cupid out of that hunter role, the ability to withstand kind of that early initial jump in on your Phoenixes is maybe one of the big reasons we're starting to see longer and longer games and Phoenix Sieges taking a little bit longer to fully complete, because we've seen it now a few times. It's just so difficult, I think, to jump in on the likes of a Ra, on the likes of a Cupid, if those types of gods are just going to be able to keep their team alive.
It's been difficult for a lot of these teams. Mifflin, now that you've had a moment to compose yourself a little bit, what have you seen?
I'll try and keep it a little bit brief since we missed out on a little bit of time. I think it's that these teams are getting a little bit more hesitant to take risky plays the closer we get to the end of the year. The closer we get to Worlds, every single individual match means more and more. So these teams aren't willing to take these 60-40s. They're not willing to take these 70-30s. They're looking for the opportunity to get into the Phoenix where it's 100% guaranteed. It feels like it really just does come down to hesitation. And to Dave's point, it is that the meta does kind of favor these elongated fights where it can be very swingy, where we use sustain like Ra or through Cupid. There's a lot of tools that you have to work through, like a Thulu ultimate or Persephone ultimate, that can almost stop aggression in their tracks as well. But I think it really does come down to that each one of the players inside of the league is putting a lot more weight on each individual match.
I think that you guys are right to point out the compositions, and that's where I wanted to take this conversation anyways. I mean, if you're a team right now, Dave, are you starting to draft with long siege defense in mind? If you think you're going to win, are you trying to draft things that can break sieges a little bit more easily? I mean, if you were coaching one of these SPL teams, what would you be telling them?
I'd be saying, guys, don't worry, we haven't won a single game yet this phase, but this is going to be the one. With me at the helm, we're finally going to turn this one around. No, I don't know. I mean, that's such a tough question. I think in reality, and this is maybe a bit away from the point of the question, but in my mind, if you are drafting specifically to defend your Phoenixes, I feel like in a weird mental way you're forfeiting the first however many minutes of the game before you get there. Obviously, that's not fully the case, but I think it's good to have someone on your team that can help you from range, help you sustain up, again, the Ras, the Cupids of the world. But I still think I'm drafting to get myself to a point where I can siege the enemy Phoenix, and then we worry about the rest from there. I mean, I love like the Tsukuyomis, these global ultimates, the ability to convincingly dive into the backline on the opposite end of the coin. Phoenix Siege, I think, is maybe where my mind goes.
Phoenix Siege might be the answer. Miff, if you're looking for a little bit more Phoenix Siege real quickly before we move on, what are some of the gods you think we should be seeing if you're a team trying to break these games open faster?
I'm looking for standard displacement picks. I'm thinking Sylvanas pool, Hercules pool, Sobek pool, Athena taunt, just anything that makes it very simple and one note on how you want to get into these Phoenixes. Make it very easy to execute on. The less moving parts there are, the more likely that you can dash in with Athena, boom, confound, searing pain. I don't care how much sustain your team has. If my ADC can land 2 auto attacks off a taunt, they should be dead. I think that's one way to work around the siege, and I think Dave's right to concern themselves more so with the siege. If you're playing around defending in the late game, it means you planned on losing throughout the early, and that's not something that I'll ever get behind.
No, you can't go in with a plan to lose a little bit more effectively. You got to try and snowball the game, and one character that's been able to do that really, really effectively as of late has been the Kingslayer. We've seen Set in multiple different roles now, in fact, 4 different roles across the SPL, ADC, mid, jungle, and solo lane. Where is he best, Mifflin? Where do you think Set finds the most success?
It's got to be mid for me. It might just be my bias from seeing Paul absolutely decimate whoever lines up against him, but I think that Set mid is in such an interesting spot in that for the first 4 levels, you're not really worried about anything because it's level 1 through 4 in mid. No one's dying unless it's to a gank, and we all know the ganks are going into the duo lane, so mid laners really have nothing to think about except for killing the wave that walks at them. It's a pretty simple role if you think about it. But the second Set gets over to level 6, level 7, all of a sudden, he's got one-shot potential against every single mage that's meta right now. I don't care if you're Persephone, I don't care if you're Hebo. If Set is able to close the distance onto you into the backline, all of a sudden you're just dead. And Set brings so much pressure into the mid-roll that if he walks into the jungle, because he has so much kill pressure, you think to yourself, okay, well, I need to follow his rotation. If he's ganking duo, my boys are going to need me. But if he isn't ganking duo, and he's just standing around in the jungle, if I follow him, I'm dead. And there's not many gods in the game that make you think exactly like that. It almost shifts how you can approach the mid lane as a whole. I think Set really does belong there.
Dave, same question to you. Where do you think Set fits best?
Man, I really hate to agree with Mifflin. I do think he's best in the mid, but I also think he's very good in the jungle, effectively for some of the same reasons. I think not only the ability to put some of that immediate pressure into the early game, whereas in Hunter and Solo, maybe you're waiting to rotate out and fight with the rest of your team. I agree with Miff in the sense that you do reach a point 5, 6, 7 levels into the game where you can just burst down enemies constantly. So if you're in the jungle, if you're in mid, especially if you're building like a jungler or a mid laner, I mean, FineOK out of the solo lane obviously had some great games on Set, but he effectively built him in that Amaterasu style, little tanky, little bruisery. I love the ability to one-shot people. I think mid or jungle, the ability to have an immediate impact and then delete people is always going to be where my vote goes.
I think that's a fair assessment. The assassin is supposed to be assassinating people. Let him do that, and Set has done it. I think we're going to see a lot more Set bans, a lot more flexibility for this god as we get closer and closer to the World Championships. Okay, fellas, it's time for the segment that I've been waiting for. Now, those of you who are following Dave on Twitter, I'm sure literally every single one of you are, because you should be, because he has the cutest little puppy in the entire world.
Did.
Ramsey is the newest addition to the Olsen family,
So tired.
and everyone is loving Ramsey. So I figured that we should try and give Ramsey a little bit of Smite knowledge, and Mifflin always has a unique opinion. Mifflin's always willing to go to bat for whatever he thinks is correct. So, Miff, I wanted to give you a couple of opportunities. Look at her. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, I love her.
Mifflin, here we go. Ready?
In her eyes.
I want
Right
you
here.
to look Ramsey in her eyes and convince Ramsey that Sun Wukong deserved to have 120% scaling on his ultimate. It's getting nerfed down to 100%, but you need to convince Ramsey that it should have stayed at 120%, that he needed that in the kit. Go ahead.
So here's the thing, Ramsey. In such a bloated role like Soul Lane, where these are fantastic picks that you can have, like Amaterasu, like Cthulhu, these picks that can single-handedly turn around these team fights. Ascent into Madness, for example, is a 14-second. Who's a good girl? You want a treat? Oh, look, she smiled. 14 seconds where you're able to be this CC chaining absolute monster, or Dazzling Offensive, where all of a sudden you're in a CC immune state and you can find a 5-man stun pretty easily because it's the size of literally Texas. I think that in that world, Somersault Cloud is in an interesting position where you either have to make the trade-off to where you sit up there and use it to heal and use it to stealth, or use it to slam down immediately to finish off a kill. If you're having that trade-off of saying, okay, well, I'm missing out on regenerating 1,000 health, I might want 120% scaling. And I think being the reasonable judge that you are, Ramsey, you should agree.
What do you think?
What do you think, Dave? What's she saying?
Oh, she's going in for a kiss. I think she might agree with Miff here on this one. I think he lost her early on.
Yeah.
And then remember, she really honed in there at the end. So I think not horrible by Miff.
Well done, Mifflin. Now we're going to go really into your wheelhouse. Here's question number 2. You need to convince Ramsey that if it isn't jungle diff, what is it?
So Ramsey, here's the thing: that jungles are the best role in the game, and that we
Oh,
control
Mike, look
every
at her.
single thing that happens.
She's already out. Nope,
if
we're
it's-
calling
if
it
it's-
right there. Nope,
all
it's
right.
always jungle diff. She's already made up her mind. It's every game is jungle diff, and Ramsey is a Smite genius. All right, Mifflin, here's your toughest task yet. The final question of which you need to convince Ramsey. Convince Ramsey. Look her in her innocent, trusting, loving eyes.
Oh, I
and
love her.
convince her that 100 clones of you could best an angry silverback gorilla in unarmed hand-to-hand combat.
Well, this is actually the easiest one, Ramsey. If we were to do some simple math, we're going to go ahead and multiply my body weight by 100, all right? I'm going to out myself real quick. That's like, what do you just add 2 zeros? That's like 29,000 pounds, I think, of Mifflin barreling down on a singular gorilla. What is that, like 8 feet tall? If we were all to attack at one point, not only is Mifflin lethal in the art of street combat, but also, I've watched a lot of anime, right? So I'm going to like, the gorilla's going to throw a punch, so I'm like catching it on one finger and then like using chi to deflect it. I've got, just improvised nature-based weaponry, assuming that we're fighting in gorilla's home turf. I'll just pick up a branch or something and absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Ramsey, come back. No.
Wise call. Wise call here, Dave. 100 Mifflin stand no shot against a gorilla. That's all there is to it. Even Ramsey knows it, and she's only been on this earth for like, what, 2 months,
10
Dave?
weeks today. It's her
10
10-week birthday today. Wow.
Oh,
Yes! Yes! Happy
10
birthday,
weeks.
Ramsey! You did it! And now Mifflin has hopefully not made you any dumber because, listen.
Yeah, we reversed
That
some
was tough.
training. We've really been
Yeah,
working
you really
on.
did. Good try, though, Mifflin. At least you got her to agree with you on the Wukong Ultimate. Nice try on the other ones, at the very least. Everyone stay tuned. Ramsey might not be coming back. She's going to take a little nap, but we've got to go over our Week 13 picks right on the other side of this break. Have your expectations and desires changed? I mean, now I think it's safe to say you're not going to be 8th this season. What are your goals now? Are you aiming as high as expecting to win Worlds?
Yeah, I think that is what we all want right now, especially me. I really want to be able to, win or lose. I think it doesn't matter. I think you want the people to have fun watching Sanguine, to enjoy your game. So we're gonna have battle up. We're gonna maybe win some, lose some. That is what I think. But like the excitement of the people watching the games, the same excitement that I have when I used to start playing, watching the old teams playing. That is what I really want for the people and for us.
You will not find many people in life more likable than Yarkor. Make sure you go and check out that interview on the Smite Pro YouTube. I think you'll all very much enjoy it. Get a little bit of a closer look at Yarkor as a person and as a Smite Pro player. All right, fellas, it's time to talk Week 13. I know we're going to start off with our big set of the week in just a little bit, but I think that overall we've got to take a look at the week as a whole. Want to take a look at the schedule here first, because obviously everyone's eyes are going to immediately gravitate towards Ghost versus SSG, but even the other set today, Sanguine PK, is an absolute banger. A critical set between E United and Obey to try and get top 6, which is the cutoff there going towards the end of the season, going to qualifiers, and then a bonus Smite set on Sunday for PK and E United. I mean, this is going to be a big week here, Dave.
Wow. Yeah, Sanguine versus PK. Look, we're Ghost SSG. I don't know if that one needs all that much build up. 1 versus 2 matchup. 3 versus 4 matchup, though, immediately after it. That is wild. PK, if they get a win, look at where they are compared to Sanguine. I guess technically the tiebreaker would be in the loss department. PK would be 11-7, and Sanguine would be 11-8, so PK would leapfrog them. What a day we got today. I mean, SSG versus Ghost immediately into Sanguine PK. That's going to be some fun.
Can't ask for a better SPL day to kick off Week 13 than this. This is going to be an awesome one. And I got to dive right in to this Ghost SSG matchup. 1 versus 2, as Dave said here, Miff. What are you looking at when it comes to this set? I mean, Ghost, despite being the team that I believe is 2nd overall in the standings right now, has beaten SSG in both previous sets.
Look, they may have beaten SSG, but I think Ghost is a little bit less consistent, I'd say, being dropping games to these lower seeded teams. But as far as this set goes, I think it's going to be a war of ideologies. It's the war of the last remaining European method team inside of SSG against Ghost Gaming, bringing that unbridled aggression in the early game. We know that SSG is a team that is very, very willing, almost phase 1 Sanguine style, to wait it out for the first 20, 25 minutes and then immediately hit the gas pedal once their picks come online. And I think that SSG has so much diversity in how they like to win games, not only in a play style, but also in just picks on the board, that is going to be very hard for Ghost to lock them down. We've seen that SSG, every single time they lose to Ghost, they add 1 or 2 more picks to their repertoire that are immediately starting to get respect banned out by the community. We've got the Hera, the Aphrodite, the Persephone. We've got a couple new picks out of the ADC as well. Jungle has one of the most diverse god pools in the league outside of Sanford Soccer, who does reside on Ghost. But I think that SSG definitely has a good shot here.
Dave, on the other side of the coin, what makes you think that Ghost is going to keep their undefeated streak up against their top competition?
History. I think history at this point is all I need to lean on here. Ghost 2-0 in their first set. Ghost 2-1 in their second set against SSG. Look, this one's close. I think I might have even voted SSG in this one, and I can't wait to see who comes out on top. But I think in the moment of weakness, I picked SSG, but if I'm sitting here really kind of sinking my teeth into this one, I think it's just, honestly, the difference maker for Ghost, if they win, will be the fact that they tend to show up in this set against this team. This is their final heat check outside of, qualifiers, playoffs, all that sort of fun stuff. This is the final league checkup for this team against SSG, and I think they're going to show up in the big moment like they always do.
I think that's a good point. This is the biggest set for Ghost in a while, basically since the last time they played SSG, where they found that 2-1 victory. Let's take a look at those predictions. You mentioned, Dave, that despite throwing your vote behind Ghost, at least we can, well, look, Mifflin took the SSG standpoint. I had to give you the other way. That's just the way it kind of goes on the waiting room. And hopefully the community's going to go alongside Finch. I'm going to remind everyone every single week that the week I was out, I was given a 0% chance to get any votes right, and that's the only reason I'm below the community. Mifflin, on the other hand, that's just his actual percentage.
Yeah, but see, I gotta be in the worst possible spot, right? Because I've actually been predicting like full on, and I'm second to lowest at this point. And here's my defense, quick defense. I know we're short on time. I think that's indicative of how competitive the SPL is. I've made some informed decisions. It just happens that way. Big upsets. Anyone can beat anyone. Big thumbs up. Look, I'm voting with you guys. I'm against you guys on some things. Not at all insecure about my percentage, and that's all I'll say about that.
There you go. That's we can tell that energy is coming from you for sure. Mifflin, you have a friend in Gormizer this week. Another Obey logo showing up on the prediction score sheet. What did you bribe Gormizer with to vote with you?
I literally just said to him, hey, man, so like if we just accurately identify the skills of each one of these teams, Sino diff, Sino diff, Sino diff, and I kind of said that 4 or 5 times while dangling a watch in front of him, and eventually he just kind of voted with me.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice little trick of the trade there if you want to get anyone on your side. Look, guys, it's going to be a very, very competitive week of the SPL. We should be in a great spot to go in to a fantastic Friday. I didn't even take a look. What did we have for the second set of the day? Sanguine PK. Who did you guys pick for that one? I didn't even look.
I was PK. I think we had 2 Sanguines on the caster squad.
I wasn't one of them. I'm PK. No. PK all the way.
I think I was PK as well. Feeding the hot hand that is the Pittsburgh Knights, the team that could be the first to upset one of these top 2 squads in quite some time. We don't have to wait around any longer here on the waiting room. Thanks to Dave and Mifflin, of course, for joining us, and thanks to you at home for watching. But I got good news. Don't have to wait any longer. SPL starting right now.
We told you it'd be quick, and we are right back into week 13 of the SPL this weekend, and then next weekend, and then the SPL will be done for season 7. What a wild run we've had. But Mifflin, we are not done yet. We've got a great Friday slate of SPL action for all the fans at home today.
Oh, we do, man. We tackled it over there on the waiting room, but we got to talk about it again, dude. Ghost and SSG coming up against each other. The number 1, SSG, versus the number 2, Ghost. And then Sanguine and PK, the number 3 and 4. Loving that, dude. It's going to be such a sick Friday to start off the week.
I think with that being said, I didn't catch your prediction for SSG, Ghost. I imagine all this SSG energy means you're predicting SSG in this matchup.
Yeah, nobody beats SSG 3 times in a row, David, all right? Let me just put that one out there. And even if they do lose, it's only going to tie up the standings. You can't beat SSG. You can only hope to match them.
Fair enough. We have a 1 versus 2 matchup to start the day, and then a 3 versus 4 matchup to finish the day. Let's talk about that second-place team right now, Mifflin. They have beaten SSG the 2 previous times they've played. But this is not a team in Ghost that are exempt from some head-scratching losses every once in a while on their side. They in their last set lost 2-0 to PK. Earlier on, they've had some very close sets against teams that you might not expect them to have close sets to. But that being said, what do you think some of the key factors are for this Ghost squad today?
I think Ghost really should be looking to make sure that Captain Twig is comfortable. That should be their game plan every single week, because as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the most volatile picks on their team. If Captain Twig is having a good game, everyone else on Ghost is absolutely thriving. You know Sanford Soccer is going to be consistent. You know Panda Cat is going to be farming inside the long lane for the first 20 minutes of the game and then rotating out at level 17. You know that every single one of these pieces is going to be able to perform well. It's just sometimes we don't get that same level of performance from Twig. When he's on these picks like Hebo, and even recently his Persephone's been looking a lot better, that's when Ghost Gaming is thriving. I think they need to be looking at his picks in the top 2, top 3 every single time.
You're telling me I get to watch Sam versus Cherio today? Oh my god, this is going to be an absolutely nut set, and hopefully the fireworks or the build-up fireworks live up to the build-up. That was definitely correct there. SSG, though, their opponents, the team touted and literally in the first place at the moment. That's right. In the SPL. They've lost to Ghost twice. They have one other loss against one other team here in this league that they are very difficult to beat. It was a 2-0 for Ghost the first time. It was a 2-1 for Ghost the second time. So SSG can take this game to Ghost. Let's flip the coin, though. What are the keys for SSG to win this big matchup against the second-seeded team?
Look, SSG is a team that it's kind of the bit, but I want them to withstand the early game pressure. And it used to be that every team's strategy to beat Ghost was just to withstand the early game pressure, bring it to them in the late. But as the phases have been ticking away, we realize that Ghost still has one of the best late game team fights in the league. It's just that SSG, for my money, has the best late game team fight in the league. So they should definitely be waiting to play at their strongest point. Outside of that, I'm worried about how well is Rapper going to play on the day of. Some days he looks like 2013 Rapper, just diffing everybody through mechanics alone and positioning. And then some days he kind of looks like he's a little bit lost on the battleground. It depends on what version we get and how well they're going to control their draft. I had the opportunity to speak with Zeros recently on APAM's talk show, and he said that if he was going to beat SSG, or if he was playing against SSG, his entire strategy would revolve around banning out Rapper, because if Rapper is not comfortable, it makes it a lot harder for Dardes to perform on the picks that he likes, like Hera or these immobile mages. So I think that SSG should really look to make sure that they get the Sobex, they get their Fafnirs, they get the Kepris, whatever that Rapper wants today.
Yeah, he loves the Ganesh picks as well. There's a lot in that God pool. And you know, I like that we bring up Vote a little bit. I mean, this SSG team, they've won 6 straight games, 3 straight 2-0 sets for this squad. So they're absolutely on the come-up, starting to heat up here. And Vote, throughout all of them, fantastic. We don't want to rifle off stats all that often. 3-1, 8-3, 8-3, 5-3, 2-0, 6-1 for Vote in his last 6 games. Has not even come close to negative throughout any of those. This guy is playing absolutely lights out. Picks and bans for Ghost versus SSG. Let's delay this one no longer. Mifflin, So long we've talked about how SSG is maybe the toughest team in the league to pick and ban against just because of how many people on their team now you have to consider. You're going in, do you really stick with Rapper, you think, here? How much stock do you think you put into banning out Dardes out of the mid lane? Obviously, Nika pulls some weight out of the solo. Very difficult, I think, to lock down where that ban priority should go against a team like SSG.
I think that when a team has so many comfort picks, if they've got 3 comfort off-meta picks per player, the best you can hope for in that first phase of bans is to remove the main problems for each one of those roles, and I think that's what Ghost is going for here. When I think of Cherio, Kali, Erlang Shen, those are the 2 picks that I associate most strongly with him, and Ghost immediately addressed one of them. When I think of Dardes, it comes down to the Aphrodite, the Hera. Ghost is immediately going for the Aphrodite. I would have likely gone for the Sobek in that 3rd ban phase, because if Hera does get picked up, Sobek's one of the best peel gods that you can have for him, which would make it much harder for Dardes to perform on, but instead, Ghost select to use their 3rd ban to make sure that the enemy mid laner isn't comfortable.
I love the Erlang Shen ban as well. I don't know how we go through an entire pregame segment witabout mentioning the pentakill and the couple of quads that Cherio has had on his Erlang Shen in the last couple of games, but obviously that's something Ghost would not forget. Cupid left open, that means Panda Cat wants it, and Panda Cat will get it. Obviously, we've talked a good bit about Rapper as well, and what you leave open for him. The Ganesh was still there, but Mifflin, Sobek in that lane is going to buy some early pressure for SSG.
It is, and some fantastic late-game defense for their team, as well as the ability to easily displace at least one member. It's slept on a little bit, but I think Sobek's one of the best Guardians you can have once you get to that late-game siege. It simplifies how easy it is to find your picks, but this Morgan hover is very interesting. Picking up this early on in the draft is going to open up Ghost to looking towards some of those more standard counter picks, especially when gods like Persephone, like Amaterasu are still available on the table. I'd be surprised if Twig doesn't pick up the Persephone here. This Morgan pick could either be the straw that breaks the camel's back for Ghost, or just a huge backfires. It misfires in your fans.
Yeah, remember, Dardes has liked this pick in their set, SSG set against Obey, back-to-back games and back-to-back wins for Dardes on that Morrigan out of the mid lane. So not something we are not used to seeing here for SSG. King Arthur, though, out of the solo lane, you always got to like that, I think, Mifflin, giving FineOK something that he can make these big plays, these big rotations on. And then a Susano. Not only, I think, is this a good pick for Sam for soccer, I think that's also a takeaway. This is a pick in the Susano that SSG have liked to pair with something like the Morrigan in the past, and some of the composition that we're starting to see SSG build out again in that set against Obey. Cherio played Susano when it was Dardes on the Morrigan in the mid lane, so obviously Ghost has done some homework coming into this one.
Yeah, I think that's very smart to point out that it likely was SSG's plan to pick up that Susano in that 3rd spot instead picking up the Rom. But Susano as well, not only is it a nice pick away from SSG, but it also has a decent counter matchup into the Morrigan. If you're able to connect with the 3rd ability, all of a sudden that dot damage is on you. You can't use the stealth on Morrigan at all. If you're already on top of her, you can immediately use your ultimate. All of a sudden it's unmissable. She can't use her stealth to escape out of that situation either. You've got the CC lockdown to drag her out of position. I think that Susano is a very smart pick for Ghost here. Maybe a pivot that SSG wasn't quite prepared for.
Well, Rom is Vote's most played god here in Phase 2 at 16%, but he has only played it once out of the last 6 games that SSG has played. His lowest kill count, though, to be fair, he went 205 in that one, so I don't think he's super worried about it. Lowest kill count in the last 6 games. Definitely not something to scoff at, though. The second wave of bans for both of these teams coming through, obviously a little centered around Mike, a little centered around the solo lane as well for Ghost down the stretch there. Wild to me that that Amaterasu gets let through this late on, but Ghost still able to ban it away, so it's going to have to be something else. And Nike is that answer. Again, something that Ghost has liked out of the solo lane, and I think Nico will like it as well.
Yeah, Nika gets to stretch his wings a little bit, finally gets that Amaterasu respect band toward him, and decides to pick up the Nike. I like this pickup for the additional safety. When you're landing against a god like King Arthur, you have to worry about that little bit of solo potential. You shouldn't likely be getting sold out inside of the short lane just about ever, but King Arthur being the lane bully that he is, having that additional health bar just to make sure that you can get out of these situations with the Sentinel of Zeus, is going to be very nice for Nika. Even if a gank comes his way, he should be able to survive those situations relatively easily. And you've also got the additional benefit of having that late game powerhouse passive coming online around the 20-minute mark for the rest of your team.
Fafnir to round out the draft, but just before that, Captain Twig will be piloting the Ra. Mifflin, this is something we talked about on the waiting room as well. The ability to have these sustainy comps will obviously help you on base defenses, but will help you on objectives, will help you on your siege as well. You take too much poke, you don't have to leave. You've got two fantastic pieces of utility there. We talked about the Cupid and the Ra individually, but now Ghost has them both.
A lot of sustain is going to make it a lot easier for SSG to rationalize slotting anti-heal into their drafts very early on. Brawler's Beatstick, Divine Ruin, Onk, there's so many tools to deal with it, and it's going to get more value the more healing that you have. Ra and Cupid together, plus the sustain that King Arthur is going to get if he decides to go towards Soul Eater, as well as Fafnir getting some inherent healing within his kit as well. It means that SSG is going to get well rewarded for every single bit of anti-heal that they pick up. But now they're also on a timer, Ghost Gaming that is, because SSG finish out this draft with the Kali, one of Cherio's signature picks. If you let Kali and Morgan come online in the late game, all of a sudden you're getting one shot by the Morgan, then turned into a Kali, two death immune gods, W King at you with Hasten, Katana, and Kin size. That's a scary draft.
Hey, Maxonomic, Miff, you and I have built this one up. It's time for these two teams to knock it down. Ghost, SSG, Finch, and Aggro on the call.
Sets that we've got right now. Ghost and SSG are gonna be throwing hands here, and I want to make sure that you all at home let us know who you think's gonna win. Make sure you're voting in that Twitch chat. Aggro, for me, the biggest thing in that picks and ban phase are those last two picks by Ghost. Ra and Fafnir are the two picks that are coming in for them. It feels like the rise of Ra lately in this Fafnir pick has not done particularly well. What do you make of these?
I think that in terms of the Fafnir, I love it for Mike because people might forget during that Season 4 run where E United wins Worlds, Mike was just slamming Fafnir like every single game. This is a comfort pick for him, even if he hasn't played it in the last few weeks, months, seasons even. I'm not that worried about him. For Twig on this Ra, I think is a little bit more noteworthy because I don't think of Twig as a Ra player, but I do think of him as a utility mid laner. When I think of what Twig brings in his play style in the mid lane for Ghost, I think he is very adaptable. He's willing to do whatever it takes in terms of the draft to make it work for the team. And he's also willing to go in there and die in order to get the best possible team fight for the team. Ra doesn't always do that very well. He wants to be one of the last ones alive so that he can sustain up everybody else that's alongside him. That's a really key part of playing this pick. So I do think it requires Twig to play slightly differently than he normally does, but I've been so impressed with Twig as of late that I don't think that's a reason to worry if you're a Ghost fan.
It's just become a more popular pick in general, hasn't it? We've been seeing it all around the league. Ven, Hurwind, Wolfie, all these guys playing it. As that's been kind of something that's going on. A lot of mid laners not so sure what the best pick is anymore. It feels like one of our shallower pools in terms of like meta pools as well, and maybe this Ra can be one of those that can kind of rise up and help them round out that pick. Meanwhile, over for Mike, tons of support picks got banned coming into this one, but still comfortable on this Fafnir, so we'll have to see how it ends up working for him. He's able to find Hammer here on Rapper. Mike, as long as he escapes from this one, yeah, underhand tactic gets him out. I think that this is such a good matchup, right? Because Ghost, I think of as our premier early game team. Is there a better team at the first 12 minutes in the league than them? I don't think so. Meanwhile, Space Station are our best late game team. They hit the go button 18, 19 minutes into the game, and suddenly they're a different squad. We get to see how those two styles clash in this one.
And I'm surprised at this direction that Space Station went with their draft with that in mind. When we think back to the set where Ghost actually fell in one of these games to SSG, overall in Phase 2, Ghost is 4-1 against SSG. They took their last loss in the last set that these two played, and it was Space Station in a 18, 19-minute victory that got the win, which was very different. And that was a huge deal that they were able to get that sort of momentum going that early. They didn't really draft for that this game. Their right side of the map is Kali Nike. that's late game. You're not getting early pressure most of the time with those two picks. And Ghost has played into that same style as well a little bit. I mean, Susano I also think of as a late game assassin, not really early game focused. But fine, okay, on the Arthur is certainly much more early game focused than that of the Nike. I think Ra is more early game than the Morrigan. You've got really good tools to be aggressive early if you're Ghost, even though your jungler isn't necessarily of that same mindset. So I want to see Ghost be the aggressors in about 5 minutes or so whenever they do have their first items online and can start to really make use of their kits, which are just base stronger than SSG's at this point in the game.
And we can expect that we'll be seeing this Ghost team get aggressive. It's how so often they have found their success. You know, once the Hercules has started getting banned, I feel like Aurora and Mike both had to make some adjustments. And I think Mike's came through much cleaner. He was able to kind of make some other adjustments, to pick some other picks and still look strong, whereas Aurora, I think, has started to finally find that rhythm with Juan. But here's a rotation in from Sam, and that's going to find first blood. This Susano coming over to dual lane early, taking care of the Sobek. Not the end of the world, but I think we can expect Ghost to do a lot more of that.
And the reason this gank works, Finch, is because of the different start that Sam went. He didn't start with Mace like we normally would expect. He started with early boots, backed at a different timer than usual, and then showed up on the left-hand side with full boots. So he's way faster and way stronger than most junglers would be at that point. It's a different timing that Sam comes over there, and that's what lets him catch SSG so off guard.
And find that very first kill. And this is what we were expecting, right? For Ghost to be coming out early. Maybe a little bit later than this, like you were saying, maybe a couple more minutes. And in particular, the Susano you don't normally think of as this early, but I think that this certainly fits Ghost's style, if not necessarily this exact draft. They love to hit the gas pedal right away, and that's already what they've done. Sam, the best that we've got doing it right now. Cherry's close, but I think it's Sam, man.
I have to agree with you. Just statistically, that's been the case so far, and also by the eye test. Though, when Cherry gets that Erlong Shen, I mean, a couple of a pentakill and a couple of quadras definitely throw his hat into the ring. But I think that's the reason we saw Ghost ban Erlong Shen first overall in the first pick slot. They definitely respect what Cherry can do on that god.
And I think that they're right to do that, right? To make sure that they're limiting what this SSG team could do. Because this is something I was thinking. SSG have a ton of comfort picks, right? They've got this Kali for Tyrio. They've got Dardez on Morrigan. They've got Vote on Ramen has been his best pick. And I think Ghost had to fall a little bit away from some of their comfort picks here in this one. So we'll see how well they're able to adjust with picks like the Ra we don't normally see there for them. Or maybe even some of these other ones are a little bit off from what we normally see. But we'll get our chance to see exactly how all of these teams end up adjusting. SSG and Ghost. It'll be a few minutes. We'll be right back after a quick break.